You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. I know cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Oh, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leach, and welcome to the big broadcast today. For those of you who have a photographic memory, you're going to love this show as we talk about some of the exciting events from the history of the cannabis movement, the marijuana movement, the hemp legalization movement. Because on the program today, we have a variety of information we're going to be sharing from a fantastic book written by an amazing author. And we've also got a great author on the program as a joint host today, Al Byrne. Al is a brilliant writer, and he's also written about the history of the cannabis movement. And he has a book that you can find on Amazon as well. I'll let him share that with you when he gets a minute. And then also running the controls today and also acting as another joint host on the big broadcast is our friend from Canada, Al Graham. And do remember that anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, on the big broadcast, make it a point to hit your pipe, your bong, your vaporizer, or your joint and take time for him. Al Graham, why don't you let the audience know about the amazing guest we have joining us on the program today?
Our guest today, Malcolm, I would think Al Byrne should introduce him. Al knows a lot more about him than I do. And
I'm sorry, maybe I've been hitting my pipe a little too
I
long.
think so.
I'm good, Al Byrne. You're awfully quiet today. Speak up and say hi.
I'll make up for that later on, Casper. Thank you all. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys as always. Again, folks, Casper and I worked for years on Time for Hemp before his retirement. And we've brought him back from retirement, kind of me from retirement as well, to do a couple of things with Time for Hemp, one of which you'll be involved with pretty quick. Time for Hemp has an incredible archive of interviews such as this with people from, if you will, the past, doctors, nurses, researchers, activists, advocates, not just from the United States, but really from other countries. And we thought that archive was so valuable, we needed to bring it back for the new generations, if you will. And we're hoping that people that are a lot less than the guys you see on the screen will join us, spread the word on what we're talking about, and enjoy our archives. And mixed in with the archive information that we're going to present over the years, we're going to have new interviews such as today. And one of these fellows that we're bringing up is another old guy like us, but this is sort of a historical beginning for the show. His name is Malcolm MacKinnon. Some may remember him as Dan Sky. He used that pseudonym when he was the editor-in-chief of High Times magazine. Malcolm and I have worked together for decades, I guess. And I'm going to let him tell you about his life history here with the cannabis plant. He's a nationally known photographer. You'll see a lot of his work on this show. Excellent stuff. A lot of work that is impressive, not just of people, but of plants and places that Malcolm has visited and traveled through, which is extensive. So Malcolm, why don't you come on and introduce yourself, please?
Well, thank you, Al. I really appreciate it. I just don't like the old guy stuff, but everything else I agree with. Okay.
Well, listen, man, your hair and my hair, we at least got some. I mean, look at Casper. Come on.
I had white hair when I was 30 years old. Okay, so you can't really tell the difference. No, thanks so much, man. It's so great to be on Time for Hemp. Casper, I've known who you are and Time for Hemp for years and years. I started with High Times back in 1991, and man, you were on the scene. One of the first media broadcasts that was exclusively about cannabis. So thanks again for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. Al, I released my book late last year, not in time for Christmas, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that 2024 is going to be a great year. The name of the book is Pot Shots, The Journey of a High Times Photographer, which is me. And it covers my 25-year history with High Times, where I photographed pretty much everything in the cannabis movement. I've been very, very, fortunate. And some people have called me, the premier photographer of the cannabis movement, which I'm certainly not going to disagree with. But it's been quite a journey. I mean, I interviewed celebrities, interviewed all the leaders, all the icons of cannabis. And, I also got to participate in the Lakota Hemp Project, where the Indians on the Pine Ridge Reservation first tried to grow hemp back in 2000. So I was part of the Lakota Hemp Project and also was part of the Navajo Hemp Project. Cannabis has taken me on a journey that I never would have expected, because I came to New York as an actor in 1976, and I was never discovered. So, and I went on to the fitness industry, and I was the fitness director for New York sports clubs for years. I was also a top aerobics instructor, and I traveled to Japan and taught people in Japan, and I was part of the pro Reebok team. And after a while, I said, this is my life. This is not what I expected. And then, of course, you mentioned earlier Peter Gorman. Before we went on the air, he was a longtime friend. Peter and I met each other when he was a cook in a restaurant on the Upper East Side, and I was a waiter. And we stayed friends for years. And in 1990, he invited me to be the photographer for my first story for High Times. And he was very, very generous to allow me to do that. And here, 25 years later, I became this, iconic photographer. And like I say, I've photographed just about everything, all the major leaders of the movement, the icons. And, this book has 330 photos. It's over 200 pages. And it's not chronological. It kind of goes through chapters of what's important in the cannabis movement. There are chapters on hemp. There are chapters that focus on the lovely models that I've shot. There are gardens, there are individual buds. So I encourage everybody to check it out. It's a great book. PotShotsBook.com will take you there. Potshots Book. And you can, order this book on Amazon or on Kindle. So anyway, thanks again for having me.
I'm certainly glad you mentioned Peter Gorman. Another one of the guys that did so much for us. Peter's gone now.
Yeah,
but, he's well remembered by everybody. If you worked with Peter as we did, you had to respect the man in so many different ways. He's a great.
He's an amazing man. First of all, he was a top chef. I mean, he truly was very, very gifted. Great writer. And he left High Times, and his heart was in the Amazon. And he was a senior editor for High Times, eventually became the executive editor of High Times. And he went down to the Amazon, became an ayahuascadero, where he was taking people on ayahuasca journeys. And Peter studied ayahuasca. He wasn't one of these fly-by-night, doofuses that go down there and get all the rich people. He did it in a very, very honest way, and he had real strong connections in Peru where he did these kind of things. So yeah, Peter is going to be missed. He was a great writer, a great friend. Yeah.
Photos of him in your book?
No, but it doesn't focus on the High Times people so much. I certainly acknowledge Peter in the book in the acknowledgments, but it was more about me outside the office. I'll tell you one thing about High Times. I was always glad to get out of the office, and I traveled over 1 million miles on assignment. Went all over the place. I was always glad to get out of the office. So to me, the book is about being outside the office and meeting all the wonderful people in cannabis. And believe me, what a cross-section of people, from growers to dealers to smugglers, all the people I met and respected. I mean, these were really righteous people. They were outlaws in the very best sense of the word. So yeah, as I say, High Times afforded me more opportunities than I could have possibly imagined as far as living life. I mean, it was over a third of my life. High Time is having some problems now. I know you probably guys are aware of that. It's in the news. They're going into receivership, which means they are selling off the assets. So I don't know where this is going to end up, but it's kind of sad. It's it's like the story of the entire publishing industry, though. So many magazines have gone under over the past 20 years because of the internet and because people don't read magazines anymore. So that's kind of where things are at.
Yeah, well, High Times is an icon of its own. I mean, really.
The other aspect of it. Let me interrupt you for a minute. The other aspect of it is the AI. I know Sports Illustrated laid off like 2/3 of his staff and is now having the magazine written by AI and illustrated by AI, just like the Hollywood strike was sometimes, in some ways, by the writers focused on not using AI scripts.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only are people not reading as much the printed magazine that comes to the newsstands or to all the cities. When they do read, they read online, and then oftentimes what they read online was written by AI and not a human. Right. So I can see on many fronts why it is that High Times magazine is now downsizing.
Well, also, it's not downsizing. High Times has made some terrible decisions over the last 7 years since I left, and I'm not saying that I was it went downhill from when I left, but it did. I mean, it certainly did. They made terrible decisions afterward. They moved out to California. Why? I'll never know. When the entire industry, I told you, it's going to be on the East Coast. We have more people here on the East Coast between Boston and Washington than California. We have 20 million, 30 million more people on the East Coast. So, it's going to be legal. So why are we moving the company? So they moved out the West Coast, and you've seen what's happened in California. It's been a disaster. The entire rollout of marijuana there. All this revenue they expected to get, well, they overregulated the damn place. And so, it's not what they expected. Everybody's gone back to the black market, and which I'm all for, by the way. So,
Malcolm, tell us about Alex White Plume.
Alex lives on the Pine Ridge Reservation. He was one of the leaders of the Lakota Hemp Project. And for 3 consecutive years, they grew hemp on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And each time they were raided by the feds. The first time in 2000, the feds came in with automatic weapons, with a helicopter, a major force, show of force, an operation that had to cost about $500,000. They had the BIA there, they had the FBI, the DEA, all to raid a small little hemp field. And so and the funny part is about this, they dragged away the hemp, all the hemp to the trucks, dragged it away, and they scattered seeds all over the place. So hemp started growing immediately the next year everywhere. But Alex, they finally slapped an injunction against Alex to make him stop growing hemp, and finally in 2015 the restrictions were lifted, and the White Plumes do grow hemp. But Alex is a leader on the reservation. He was the tribal president for a couple of years, and he's been very active in the hemp scene. His late wife, Deborah White Plume, was a major force. She was also involved in the hemp, but she was also fought uranium interests. She was part of the pipeline protests. Deborah White Plume passed away a couple of years ago. And the White Plumes were a force and remain a force on the reservation. Go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that the Lakota in their treaty with the United States government was given the right to grow hemp. And isn't that what Alex leaned on?
Absolutely. It's the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, that they were all land for number one between I forget, the Powder River and the Platte, something that was all designated as Indian land, which was never supposed to be encroached upon. Well, we know how that all worked out. And they were encouraged to grow the crops of the day. What is the crop of the day back then? Hemp. So that was one of the major arguments that the Lakota had. You have to remember, in 2000, the tribe passed a tribal ordinance that allowed growing hemp, and the feds disregarded that and came in force 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I remember all that. It was sad, and I thought that tribe was remarkably brave facing down the federal government. I was glad that nobody went to jail, but nevertheless, that could help the economy of that Indian nation.
Yeah, Al, that was the whole point. To get some kind of economic sovereignty on the reservation. That was what the whole thing was about. And the thing is, I'll tell you, this was becoming a real issue for the Indians to once again come together and fight the federal government. And I think the government was a little bit nervous about how this was ending up, because I know Alex at one time said if the feds come in again, they're going to come in and we're going to block all the roads so they can't get out. So that's how serious things were getting. And I said, wow, man, I got to be there for this. It's going to be, it's going to be Wounded Knee #2,
I know, like right here in Canada, there's the issue of sovereign cannabis with First Nations and our legal cannabis here in Canada.
Yeah.
And they want to have that right to be able to have their own system outside of the legal system, and they're fighting for it. And some of them are being very, very successful on it.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of tribes that are growing successfully, and there are a lot of that also goes for recreational cannabis. There are dispensaries on the Pine Ridge Reservation now, but there's also a lot of corruption going on. There are a lot of outside entities coming on the reservation, and there have been problems, in a number of reservations. As far
Casper, let's put up some of Dan Sky's film pictures and let him tell us about them.
Okay. All right, I will do that. Just a minute here. We'll start with this one. Hold on.
Okay.
Hey, Malcolm, I always wanted to ask you this question, so here's my time. Why did you use that pseudonym?
Well, it was funny. When I first was working for High Times, I was covering the New Age scene, which I found extremely funny and entertaining. And so I went out in Sedona. I did a number of stories out in Sedona, and I came back. Somebody gave me a New Age tape, and it was called Skydance. And the art director, who is a rock and roller, just laughed about it. Started calling me Skydance, so I just reversed it. Dan Sky. That's as simple as that.
Well, there you go, guys. Now we know.
Now we know.
Well, what do we got on the screen there, Malcolm?
This is the first recreational harvest of New York City. This was happened in 2022. Yeah, 2022. This was the very last feature I did for High Times magazine. I was published in 5 different decades for High Times. 5 different decades. Wow. If I was Gordie Howe, if this was hockey, I'd be Gordie Howe. Okay. So yeah, this was my last feature for them. This was in October up in Poughkeepsie, New York, and these guys had it going on, man. So this is a tremendous, beautiful October morning that I was so pleased. Got up on their water tower and shot this shot. Yeah, great. Nice. Thanks for showing
Very
that.
nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I tell you, photography is the best. I mean, my dad had a farm. First thing I do in the morning is smoke a joint, walk out on his farm, and take shots of all kinds of things. It is the best. I mean, I've been doing photographs since the late 70s, I guess. So yeah, I just enjoy it so much. A shot there, Casper?
I'm coming up next. I'm learning how to operate these highfalutin.
Okay. Oh, this is the highest photograph I've ever taken. This was taken in near Alma, Colorado, which is actually the highest incorporated city in the United States. And Alma has a great dispensary called High Country Healing. And the owner took me up about 2,000 feet higher. This is about 14,000 feet. So we shot this, and that's a bristlecone pine tree in the background, one of the oldest living plants on Earth. It lives to 2,000 years old and can survive in the harshest climates. So, yeah, this was a wonderful shot, the highest shot I've ever taken.
Where'd you get the buds?
The buds were from the dispensary, man. I'll tell you, I depended on dispensaries and growers and dealers for the buds. I mean, seriously, I've never been a grower, so I depended on the kindness of strangers.
Well, they sure gave you a big pile of nice-looking buds.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw lots of buds, man. I tell you.
So I suppose when you were taking pictures of this plant, it's a plant, folks. You got to sample some of it?
Oh, always. That's part of it. I mean, I traveled with lots of pot that was given to me. This is a picture of Cheech and Chong when they reunited. Took this picture in 2008. Those are fake plants, but I wanted to show Tommy is one of the icons that I note in my book. There are 4 of them that I mentioned, and Tommy's one of them. And this is Cheech and Chong 2008 at the Troubadour when they were reuniting as an act. And this was, and I shot them for the cover about an hour after this. So Cheech and Chong.
I got to see Tommy about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Tommy is Tommy is real. That's why his appeal is so great. I mean, you're getting what you see. Tommy is the nicest celebrity you will ever meet, friendly to everyone.
Yeah,
he was penalized for doing the job.
That's right. 2003, he was arrested in the Operation Green Merchant for selling bongs on the internet. This is Dennis Perone, also one of the icons that I mentioned. Dennis, of course, is the father of medical marijuana. He was a huge San Francisco activist, started the compassion clubs, the first compassion club in the country in San Francisco. He died about 3 or 4 years ago. I photographed him at his home in San Francisco. Truly one of the remarkable people who knew politics, uncanny ability to talk to all kinds of people and get things done. He was principally responsible, not principally, but certainly one of the architects of Prop 215, which legalized medical marijuana.
No, I need to rephrase that. He was the architect of 215. Dr. Todd Vickeria helped a lot. I understand that. But I can say that for a fact.
Thank you.
I sat and listened in on conversations between Jack Hare and Dennis Perone. Jack Hare would argue, Dennis, you're wrong. We got to do it on hemp. The country doesn't know about hemp paper. They don't know about hemp fuel. They don't know about hemp clothes. And Dennis would say, that's old history, Jack. They do know about it. What they don't know about is how you need it for medical, how you need it for your arthritis, how you need it. And they don't realize that all cannabis use is medical cannabis. Medical cannabis use, and you don't understand, Jack. You're not going to legalize it on just hemp. And Jack would say, Dennis, you're wrong. Medical cannabis is old school. Everybody knows about that. They got to make it for the fuel. If we do it for the fuel, Dennis, we'll be able to legalize this. And they went back and forth and back and forth. And I sat and listened and listened and listened. And Dennis said, well, you watch, Jack. And then Dennis began Proposition P with Dr. Todd Vickeria and a few others, and then they followed it with Proposition 215 with the help of Lynette Shaw and a handful of others. But the whole brainchild of the medical cannabis movement is Dennis Perone. I love Dennis. He's one of my heroes. I was blessed to have had a friendship with him, blessed to have smoked with him, blessed to have learned from him. And I hope that my archive is used to help maintain his memory, his voice, and his knowledge. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, when he said, you know, like I said, he said that all, he said that all cannabis use is medical. It always leads me to the my thought that why do we smoke? We don't smoke to get high. We don't smoke to get buzzed. We smoke to feel better, right? We smoke to feel good. So I always said that, you know, I always said high times should be better times, you know. Something.
You know, I think that's important to bring up, Malcolm, because that whole idea that we're all just stoners and we can't do anything, and that's such a misnomer. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, and I agree. And I understand Dennis's comment about all use is medical, because it is a relaxant. It makes you feel good. Well, if you feel good, that's what being healthy is about.
Exactly.
I mean, to me, it's pretty friggin' obvious, you know, but he said it, and he said it right. Yep.
Well, and I can tell you, it's an interesting position to be in now that I'm almost 100, right? To realize that I was able to sit in on those conversations with two great people like Dennis Perone and Jack Hare and listen to them have such a debate.
Sure. Well, see if you can get a picture of Jack. He was certainly the icon. I start off my book with Jack Hare. I met Jack in 1994 at the first meeting of the Hemp Industry Association in 1994. And then in 1995, spent a week with him in Los Angeles, photographing me in a number of locations, and became some classic photos that I took of him. Jack,
I'll bring that photo up here in a minute. But right now, I'm just curious about this one.
Oh, well, this is Alex Whiteplume. This is with his grandson, and they're planting hemp. This was in 2001 at the second hemp planting. And this ran in high times. I thought this was a very, very heartwarming photo. I mean, just simplicity, you know. And so he was just helping his grandson grow hemp. And so, yeah, thanks for showing that.
Well, and I think it also demonstrates the importance of sharing this information from generation to generation.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Completely agree with you, Casper.
And then let's see.
It's all part of history.
This one. I got to admit, I am a dog lover, and I fell in love with this when I saw it.
All right. Here we go. Oh, this was taken up in Humboldt County, and that's the Pacific out there in the distance. But yeah, I was shooting this 23-pound bale, and the dog dashed into the photo while I was shooting, and I was just lucky, man. And those are of course wonderful mushrooms in the foreground.
Nice.
Part of my display. And yeah, that was taken by some great growers up in Humboldt County who helped me so much in so many ways. He showed me took me tours of Humboldt County gardens, so many. They were so generous. The people in Humboldt County who toured me around were the best. I mean, they are a breed unto themselves. They really are. Trinity County is even weirder, though. Trinity County is, Northern California is something else. I took this, obviously, in the Hollywood Hills. And the story behind this, I was taking the shot, and I had an LAPD helicopter come over and hover over us. He took off, came back a second time, and we continued to shoot. Third time, I said, I'm not taking any chances. He just hovered there. He couldn't land because it's very, very hilly country. But I had to get close enough to the Hollywood sign with a wide-angle lens so I could shoot this. And so I shot this. There's the date, 1997. Scene, herb, take a hit, roll one. So that was a classic shot. Truly was. It took some risk, but I didn't really feel but it was weird having the helicopter hover right over us, and I covered it up with my reflector, and then I had my assistant, the guy who was helping me that day, just pretend like he was posing as a model, and so he had his shirt off because it was a very hot day, and so he just posed, and I took a few shots like we were doing that. So yeah, that's what happened.
You had an interesting path, I must say, and all of your work. I don't know how you were lucky enough to be led from point A to point B, but it certainly is an amazing journey. I can say that.
Made a lot of friends, that's for sure. I mean, I'm a curious person, so I'm always interested in people, and like I said, the cross section of people in the cannabis industry is amazing. All their backgrounds. This is Alex White-Plume's daughter, Rosebud White-Plume. Now, this was the result of after the 2000 raid, when the feds dragged the plants away, seeds were just scattered everywhere. So this field was planted by the elements, by nature. And so Rosebud dressed up in a jingle dress, and she went and posed in this for me because we were still covering the Lakota Hemp project because it was ongoing. And Rosebud posed with a traditional jingle dress. She's married now. She's got 8 kids now. But she's something else. She's an amazing person. She's still doing what her mother was doing. Deborah White-Plume, still doing the work. Lester Grinspoon. I shot this up in his retirement community a few years before he died, and he had never posed with cannabis in his life. But I asked him, would you mind doing it just for the record, just doing it? And he said, yeah, why not? So we went out into the courtyard of his retirement community, and he sat there, and I shot this photo. One of the nicest men you could possibly imagine. And I truly gave our movement unassailable credibility, because how do you argue with this guy, a medical professor from Harvard? And he was the guy who wrote these books and was anti-cannabis until he did the research, and then he said, boy, we have been duped. That was his whole that was his entire life. We have been duped.
And then his son.
David has taken his mantle. Absolutely.
I was blessed to have had him as a guest on my show a few times, and each time it was because that he and Al were very good friends, and Al brought him to the show. But over the period of 2 or 3 years, Lester and I became friends as well. He had a very keen sense of humor.
Oh, he did. Well, listen, I asked him. I did a big feature article, cover story on pot and sex. And so I interviewed him. What do you think? Is pot an aphrodisiac? And he was just the most wonderful interview on the whole thing. He had a ball with it. He really did. He was great.
He was, I was on active duty. I was out in the Indian Ocean, and there's a lot of extra time out there. And I did read his book. That really got me interested in medical cannabis. What was it? Marijuana Reconsidered, I believe is the name of it.
That's right.
And he intrigued me. And I'm proud to say the last interview that Dr. Grinspoon did, I did it. And he was just as you say. He was funny, gracious, and of course, if people don't know about Dr. Grinspoon, he was the best friend, I guess, of Carl Sagan.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So this man had some power. Although in my interview, I asked him again. I talked to him before about this. He was persecuted rather badly by the university.
Yeah.
And in fact, he said in that last interview that because of his advocacy for medical cannabis, which resulted from use of it by his son when sick, he was passed over for full professorship.
Yeah.
The guy's just an injustice, total injustice.
Even up here in Canada, I've even got a Lester Grinspoon story, and how Lester helped me educate a lot of people at cafes through the documentaries that he was featured in.
Oh, there's so many.
Partially because of that, he was also part of a cannabis report that was done in our local newspaper, where our local reporter reached out to him, and he was able to get an interview with him that was almost a full page in our local paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Al, unless I'm mistaken, that last interview that you did with him, that he did for posterity, aired on Time for Hemp.
What do we got there, Malcolm? Besides some really nice looking females.
This was taken at the gardens of B.E. Smith in Trinity County. B.E. was a major advocate in New York, in California, and he served, I think, 18 months in jail for growing, and he went right back to growing when he got out of jail. I always like shooting into the sun. I get very, very few photos that work out, but you never know what you're going to get. And in this particular photo, I used a flash and shot into the sun, and I got this tremendous photo. And I always made this kind of whenever I show this photo, I use biblical references. I don't know how you can deny it. I mean, seriously, beautiful sun. Nature. I love it. Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's one of the things that Jack convinced me of when I first became a participant in the hemp and marijuana hemp legalization prohibition movement. Wow. Thank you, Jack. Was that it really is a gift from God, that this one plant can create all the creature comforts that we as human needs, clothing, food, plastics, anything. And then it also creates amazing food that is good for us to survive and to grow on. And then it gives us all this great medication. So I do agree with you, Malcolm. It is a gift from God, and to use a biblical reference with this image is the right thing to do.
And also, Casper, the other thing is it makes us laugh. One thing that used to annoy the shit out of me is when people say, we have to be more serious about marijuana. I mean, we have to be serious. I mean, I don't like Tommy Chong. Tommy Chong is bad for the movement. I mean, we have to be more serious. We can't be stoners. I said, what are you talking about? Everyone knows that pot makes you happy. I mean, you enjoy life a little bit more. People laugh. What are you talking about? We have to, smoke and be serious. And I'm medicating. No, I hate that. I hate that so much. I hate it.
Well, and then the other thing, I remember watching a documentary on how laughter can heal all types of different diseases and problems in the body.
Well, how many times have you really just burst out laughing at something and you laugh so hard you think you're not going to be able to stop laughing? Afterwards, you're like, oh my God. That's great. Seriously, it's the truth.
Well, it sure looks like the guy in this picture is laughing.
Yeah, Joe Rogan. Yeah, I photographed him he was did a little article on Eddie Bravo, who was a martial artist. And so Joe was his foil. And Eddie performed all these martial arts moves on him. And so we were sitting on a great big, I can't even think of the name of it, but on a great big white canvas that I was shooting on. And so they were taking a few bong hits. I asked Joe, I said, you mind? You mind? And he was very, very cool about it. I'm not really a big fan of Joe Rogan, but he's a nice enough guy. I remember at the time, I'll just tell this quick story. He was talking about how bad Sarah Palin was as a vice presidential candidate. And I said, he said, she's got 6 kids. How can she be a vice presidential candidate? I said, well, men have children too. And he got very, very angry at me.
Well, one thing is for certain about Joe, he is very smart. And he knows how to do an excellent interview. He knows how to get the right questions at the right time.
Yeah, to a point. He's he's a good interviewer and so forth and so on. But I think he's completely. I think he can be very, very dangerous with some of the people he allows on the air. So that's kind of how I feel about Joe. I don't think he's necessarily a responsible journalist.
What's the next picture we got going here, Casper?
I'm getting there. I think people are going to recognize this one here. He's a friend, I gotta say, of Martha Stewart.
Snoop. Snoop Dogg. Yeah, he was backstage. This was at a 420 event in 2013 in Denver, and I was backstage with him. He was Michael Kennedy, the principal shareholder of High Times, was backstage with him, and so I took a number of shots of Snoop doing what he does best: smoke pot. He was very, very nice. I got some video of him we were doing the Cannabis Cup at the time. Very, very friendly. Ran into him a couple times in my travels, and he's Snoop. He represents.
So, Malcolm, what we're in the middle of your photos. These are remarkable photos. I mean, it's just excellent. The plants, the people, how did you get the skill? Where'd you get? How'd you get into this?
I'll tell you. I started out with a snapshot camera, and I was taking some very, very fine shots with a snapshot camera. With old 110 cartridge film. My wife bought me a camera in 1982 at Christmas, and I started shooting everything in sight. I never took a photography class. I read a number of photography books. I read magazines. I looked at all kinds of photos, and I shot everything I could shoot. And I didn't have anything published professionally until 1989. And it took me a long, long time to really think that I think I know what I'm doing. And that wasn't until like the 2000s. I mean, I had a lot of successful shots. It takes you a long time to really feel like I know what I'm doing. I can go into a situation, I can pull this shot off. Yeah, it was a long haul. I was very, very fortunate to have High Times to get published in. When I first worked for High Times, I wasn't all that interested in staying with the magazine. I was more interested in having my photos published. But as time went on for High Times, I have to write as well. So I became a very, very prolific writer. I wrote more features than anybody nearly in the history of magazine. I did hundreds of interviews with all kinds of different people. So I had opportunities at High Times. I took advantage of every single one. I was an ambitious person. I remained that way. This is, of course, Woody Harrelson. And I was, like I said, I was very ambitious. I jumped on this story. This is when he purposely grew hemp in Kentucky. He bought a 1/4 acre of land in Beattyville, way out in the country. And he planted 4 seeds and orchestrated his own arrest. So this was 1996. And so this took 4 years to move through the courts. And he was eventually acquitted in 2000. And he was acquitted, coincidentally, on the same day that the feds came in and raided Alex White Plume's first crop. Now, you ask me, is that a coincidence? I don't think so. It was very, very intentional to show that we're still in control. So Woody was acquitted by a jury, and that same day, Alex White Plume was raided. So this shot was taken in June 1st, 1996. I remember the date well, and he was arrested shortly after. So so they called the police, and they showed up, and so it was
it's also my understanding that, I don't know, this is good because we have someone who's right there on hand, and I'm on the phone with the people involved to see if this is correct. It's Gateway Galbraith was involved with all of this, and it's my understanding that Woody got involved with the hemp movement, the marijuana movement, because of his friendship with Willie Nelson, and he also met Gatewood, who was a friend of Willie Nelson as well. And it was their support of Gatewood's campaign for governor of the state of Kentucky that led Woody to get involved like he did in the state. And it was Gatewood who helped hypnotize Woody. Is that correct?
Gatewood pointed him toward Joe Hickey, who was trying to restart the Kentucky Hemp Growers Association that had been out of business since the 1940s. And Jake Graves, who had actually grew hemp during the 40s, during the World War II, was an old hemp farmer. He was involved in that. So I think he was pointed toward that group by Gatewood. I knew Gatewood pretty well and got to travel with him on his bus and smoke joints with him. And what a great guy. He came up to the High Times office a couple times. One of the nicest guys around. Yeah, but Gatewood was a very, very big influence on Woody as far as the hemp situation in Kentucky goes, because I don't know if people know, but Kentucky was the biggest hemp producer in the country in the 1800s into the 1900s. So Yeah,
I met Gatewood. I met Gatewood at 91, I think it was, at the San Francisco Earth Day Fair. It might have been 1990. And he and I were in High Times magazine together. That was my first time featured it. John Holston did an article about Time for Hemp, and Gatewood and I were in that in the photograph. Gatewood was a huge champion of the Time for Hemp broadcast. He was the most reoccurring guest on the show. He sent money to help keep it going. Oh, one of my best friends.
Nice.
I was blessed to have known him.
Great guy. Me too. No, seriously.
Yeah, I had him. I invited him, and he was very generous. He came and speak at a normal conference, right about when you're talking, Casper, in 90, 91, someplace in there. And the thing that I admired about him too, people don't remember, like, well, we do, but Gatewood took off in an old Mercedes-Benz sedan, driving thousands of miles, and he used hemp as the fuel. I thought that was an excellent demonstration of the plant's ability to function in yet another fashion that it's still viable today. It's still a good fuel, but hemp, that, I don't know what he called it, a hemp mobile or something like that.
Yeah,
but it got a lot of press. It did a lot of good. And he was, as you guys have said, he was unique. He was special.
He died far too young of pneumonia. Yeah, this was taken outside of Las Vegas in Red Rock Canyon. I went out early in the morning and I bought a dump truck and a earth mover in Walmart the night before, and went out early in the morning and shot this stoned quarry, I called it. It was, the only problem with this, there was a lot of breeze that morning, and I lost probably an entire ounce of pot, which of course I had to pay for. A very expensive photo shoot, but yeah, this was a fun shot to take.
That's a fun shot.
Yeah, lying on the ground first thing in the morning out in the desert. What else we got, Casper?
Well, I think that's all of them, but this last one here. Just a minute here. Let's see.
Last one. All right.
Screen, select window, and I think we all kind of recognize this guy.
Jack. This is during that week in January 1995 when I spent a week with him at his apartment. I have never seen, so it was like Grand Central Station. I mean, there are so many people coming in and out of his apartment. Anyway, we went out, we shot on Palisades Park overlooking the Pacific. It took a few shots out there, one that landed on the cover of High Times. And then that night, I shot this in his bedroom. And I didn't have the right equipment, so I took one of his lamps out in the living room, one of those, tall living room lights, and I pointed it toward his face, and I got lucky, man. I mean, this is an iconic shot. I mean, it's been used over and over and over in so many different ways. But this
as a matter of fact, I've used it. I don't know if you know that or not. Here.
And you haven't paid me? Wait a minute.
Marijuana, the hemp plant, was our Earth's #1 paper, fiber, and fuel. All our sails, ropes, books, Bibles, maps, covered wagons, towels, diapers until about this century. Imagine, 85% of history wasn't taught to us, but they made us learn about jute and sisal and flax and reindeer and cotton. But when almost all of it was hemp until the middle of the last century. It's a wonderful system that we have, that we put our kids in jail for growing a plant that is the best medicinal, that nobody's ever died from, that federal judge Francis Young said is the safest therapeutically active substance known to man. And this is what we put people in jail for, a medicine that's the best medicine that we know of on Earth, for chemotherapy, nausea, for multiple sclerosis, for asthma. So my own children are asthmatics, and my children smoke pot for their asthma, and it worked, and it saved them. My kids are in the top 2% of the class. I hope to teach everybody this information, and I hope to make the enemies madder at the system that didn't teach them anything than at us, who want to teach them all about what paper was, what fiber was, what fuel. You can make all all this stuff naturally, as we once did before, but now at a fraction of the cost, and save the planet with the healthiest plant on earth. And this we've outlawed. The number one plant out of 3.5 million plants for paper, for fiber, for fuel. No more trees cut down. No more trees ever cut down for paper, because you can make much better and healthier and cheaper paper for the earth and the rivers around it out of a plant that's outlawed.
Well, that was a surprise. Oh, goodness. You're going to have to send me that clip. I'm going to post that. All right? You're going to have to send me that. All right?
Do you like that? Really?
I love it. I'll post it on Facebook. People will love it. I guarantee you'll get hundreds of hits. Yeah.
Jack deserves all the recognition we can give him. I just want to point out another fact about Jack. He was an Army veteran. He's a veteran. Dennis Perone was an Air Force veteran. He served in Vietnam. A lot of the leadership of the day, myself included, others that I could mention, Casper Leach, were our veterans. And I've always found that pretty interesting, that in a way I don't, because when people go into the military, they take an oath, and it says that they will serve their country, and there's no expiration date. There's no expiration date to that oath.
Right. That's true.
I think that Dennis and Jack and others of our ilk remembered that there's no expiration date, and I just want the folks out there that might be civilians that don't understand that these men served their country after they served in the military. Very important. Very important.
Certain discipline of thinking that they had that was different from a lot of people. Also the teamwork involved, realizing that it took all of us. That's what the military is about. Yeah.
Well, Malcolm, we're running out of time, but you get last shot, man. Is there something you'd like to say or do that we haven't said or done yet?
Well, I don't know what to say. I mean, like I said, I've always been a disciple of Jack Herer. I'd just like to see it grow everywhere. I'd like to see people grow, buying at vegetable stands in New England, just like they do tomatoes. That's kind of where I'm at. I've always have been. I think it should be deregulated to an extreme. I think we should take the regulations off and let the plant flourish. So that's kind of where I'm at. And of course,
your book name again?
The name of my book is Pot Shots: The Journey of a High Times Photographer. You can get that at potshotsbook.com. Go there. Woody Harrelson, Tommy Chong, and Jorge Cervantes all endorse the book. I'm so proud of that. And so check it out. And guys, I can't tell you how much this has been a pleasure being with you this afternoon. It's been wonderful. I really appreciate it. A chance to talk about my book and my career. Thanks.
Well, that's reciprocal. We're glad to have you. We're honored and the work you've done over the decades, 5 of them, remarkable, just remarkable. May you continue to do it.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Casper. Thank you, Al.
Al Graham, any closing remarks?
Yes, I'd like to thank Malcolm for being part of this broadcast and to prove that every picture has a story behind it. Because as a photographer myself, I know exactly, that's what there is. There is a story behind every picture. Right. And thank you for sharing those stories with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Malcolm, it has been a joy to have you as part of our family now. You're part of our archive, which I encourage people at home to visit and check out. And I do encourage you also to go and get Malcolm's book. It makes a great gift for your friends. It also makes a great gift for Christmas, any time of the year. And it's something nice to look at when you are taking time for hemp. That is true. So what we want everybody to now know is that the next time you get a chance to let somebody know around you how important this plant is, remember they are learning something of value that they can share on to others. This plant is a gift from the heavens because it does produce so many different wonderful products like paper, fiber, fuel, medicines, and more. And that's why it's so important that the whole world know that it really is time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the spend some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, time for hemp! Yeah!
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.